In the United States, she buried her husband on Monday. On Wednesday, she gave birth to her baby girl, and by Friday, she was out on the streets begging for a chance at work, carrying her newborn tied to her back because the word surrender had never been part of her vocabulary. Spring, 1887, Dodge City, Kansas. Elizabeth Morrow, a 22-year-old woman, lost her husband after 3 brutal days of typhoid fever. She was 8 months pregnant. She had only 17 cents to her name, and she knew just 2 people in the city, each burdened with troubles of their own. Even her husband's funeral was paid for with debt because she could not afford the cost. Only 2 days later, her daughter came into the world early, crying in a city that showed no mercy. Women in her position were usually left with 3 choices: a quick marriage to save themselves, a return to their families back east, or a fall into poverty that swallowed a person whole. Elizabeth had no family to return to, and she refused to marry for survival. So she chose a 4th path, the one no one talked about because it required breaking yourself every night and rebuilding yourself every morning. She began washing other people's clothes, scrubbing them by hand in a metal basin, while her baby slept inside an old crate stuffed with flour sacks. When that wasn't enough, she cleaned the city's saloons before dawn, sweeping away the remains of yesterday before anyone opened their eyes. When that still wasn't enough, she worked nights at a hotel, changing sheets, emptying chamber pots, while her baby cried 2 buildings away with a neighbor who charged by the hour. Hunger was a constant companion. Exhaustion was unbearable. Some nights she stood over her sleeping child and trembled. From the cold, from fear, and from the endless calculations of survival that never quite balanced. She wore the same dress for 2 full years. She lived through days when the only food she knew was stale bread the bakery was going to throw away anyway. Her hands aged 10 years in the span of 1, and yet she never missed a rent payment. She never let her daughter go without milk, and she never stopped singing lullabies even when her voice was cracked from crying. By 1895, she had saved enough to open a small boarding house. By 1900, she owned the entire building. Her daughter Mary grew up watching her mother turn exhaustion into an empire one day at a time. Mary became a teacher, then a school principal, one of the first women to hold that position in Kansas. At Dodge City High School's graduation ceremony in 1923, Mary said, "My mother taught me that dignity is not something you are given. It is something you refuse to surrender." She cleaned floors so that I could stand on this stage. This is not just survival. This is revolution made of cloth and soap. Elizabeth Morrow lived to be 83. She lived long enough to see her daughter retire with a respectable pension, to see her grandchildren graduate, and her great-grandchildren born into a world she carved open with bleeding hands and an unyielding will. In her final years, they asked her, "What kept you standing all those years?" She was silent for a long time. Then she smiled and said, "Every morning, I looked at Mary and told myself, this child will never know hunger. This child will never beg." And that thought was stronger than any exhaustion in the world.